Okay, we're continuing in our discussion of the visual arts, and we have a fascinating guest next, who is an author, and a very distinguished painter, and currently is running a gallery in downtown Carmel. And I was on my way to church one Sunday morning, and I just happened to glance in at one of the galleries on my way, and Kevin, and we met, and I got Kevin Milligan, and I got a chance to see some of your great work there, and very, very impressive. And that's on
Lincoln Street.
On Lincoln Street in downtown Carmel. You have a fascinating history, sir. How did you get involved in the arts?
My great-grandfather was an artist. My grandfather was an artist, and my dad is a professional designer and painter. He just turned 86 2 weeks ago, and he's about to have a one-man show in South Carolina.
Oh, good for him.
And he started me painting when I was 7 years old in Missouri. And his pictures that he made in his design studio in St. Louis paved the way for me to go to art school. I went to the same art school as Walt Disney and Jackson Pollock in Kansas City, Missouri, of all places.
Oh, my goodness.
To the Kansas City Art Institute. And that's where I received my Bachelor of Fine Arts degree.
Okay, and your journey in the arts, and it takes you in many different interesting spots?
I went and got my master's degree, and then my twin brother got me to move out to California 32 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
So I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, and then shortly, a few years before, I'd gotten my master's degree. And so I spent most of my adult life painting California. And as I said, this is starting my 33rd year painting California. And I paint from Big Sur to Mendocino, and paint wine country in Sonoma, Napa, and Mendocino County.
Oh, just some fantastic. We do have a PowerPoint of Kevin's work, and you also have with you a book that he's you can see it here. Maybe one of the cameras can zoom in a little bit.
This is my first book, Mendocino, a painted pictorial, which not only has the painted pictorial, but has the history of Mendocino, and that's, Hamish and I will be talking a little bit more about the next book. And so I write about the history of California, and I marry it together with a painted pictorial, and that mostly keeps me out of trouble.
Oh, my goodness. You know, it's fascinating to think that you come from a family of artists. And does your twin brother also, is he also an artist? Or?
I'm the only sibling that took it up. I think everyone felt with my dad being an artist and me being an artist that was enough artists in the family.
Okay. And your dad made a living out of being an artist?
My dad had his own design studio, and he had a couple of Fortune 500 companies, Monsanto and 7-Up, had their headquarters in St. Louis, where I grew up.
Oh, my goodness.
My dad was a good businessman besides being an artist, and he got those accounts for his own company, and he used to design the leader for the 7-Up company before they went international. That was one of their big magazines, and he used to do a lot of work for Monsanto. When I was a kid, everyone knows AstroTurf. Monsanto invented AstroTurf, and that's the. But if my dad wasn't, if you're sitting down in the living room, you might be sitting on the sofa he made. You can look back and see the bookcase he made, or the sculpture of my brother's head, or a portrait. He may be sitting there painting my mother's portrait or my brother's portrait. It was always something creative going on, and in the house, and so we were really fortunate for that.
Now, we do have a PowerPoint, I believe, of Kevin Milligan's work. And what do we see here?
Okay, this is known to a lot of people that live in California. There's a mountain called Mount Diablo, and you're seeing the summit and North Peak with oaks as the title of the painting. I would fit on that painting if you put me on there diagonally. It's 3 foot by 4 foot, which maybe doesn't sound that big, but if you're outside painting the painting, I have a rig in which my partner helped me figure out how to hold these paintings up in the air and to still handle 5 to 10 miles an hour of wind. And so I so much don't want to work from a photograph that I paint the scene start to finish outside, and I carry the gear out into the field, dodging the rattlesnakes and wary of the boars and the mountain lions. And that's a fairly recent scene. I would have been working on that painting at about this time last year before I moved to Carmel.
It's absolutely beautiful.
You can see that in the gallery. It's the first painting you see coming in the front door.
It's stunning. So that's actually in the East Bay, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, and Concord, around that area.
Yeah, the Walnut Creek, Concord area, and then it's kind of back around on the back side of Clayton is where this view is, but I have views from the Danville and Walnut Creek area as well, of the same mountain.
Yeah.
This is the mountain again. It's the summit this time. That last view had the summit with North Peak, and this has the rock formation Castle Rock, which is really a real icon in itself. But I worked on this about a year ago, a little bit later in the season. I carried my gear up 1,000 feet. I lost about 5 pounds over the course of 30 days, where each day I'd hike up into the mountains carrying all the gear, including the 3-foot by 4-foot canvas. That's a load. And then, as my friends kid me, if my lunch wasn't so big, my load wouldn't be so heavy. But anyway, there were clouds coming through in November time frame, and I had done a couple watercolors from the same spot, and then did a 2x3 oil from the same spot, and then I thought I should really try the 3x4, and I was crazy enough to take all this gear up 1,000 feet and then rig it onto these posts, which the state park kind of indulged me if I promised to take it all down when I was done. And then I could stand near this about 500-foot drop and work without worrying about anything happening, you know. And
really fascinating. And in landscape art with yours, Kevin, when you go into your gallery, all the nuances, the color, it is so much deeper than you would ever get out of a photograph. And I knew Cole Weston, and I know the Weston family, and I think some of those fellas came as close as you could to representing this kind of feeling without actually doing what you were doing.
Right, they're looking for the spirit of nature that is derived from working from the source and not from secondary sources. So yes, yes, I had the Holland Canal hanging in my place for my whole life. So yeah, I know I've been a fan of the Westons. Hopefully I'll get some quotes from the Weston family for the next book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where are we here? This small town?
Yeah, this is a town. I would kind of switch back and forth between Crockett. That's the Carquinez Straits in the background and the C&H sugar plant. And so I paint some things that people think are traditionally beautiful. And I am sorry to all the Crockett residents, but I paint some things that are not considered traditionally beautiful. I tease and say it's mostly failed 40s and 50s architecture, but there's probably not a right angle going there. But I've painted some funky cityscapes in the San Francisco Bay Area. Potrero Hill is not like a scenic beauty as one would think. And I've painted the Lake Merritt area in Oakland, a few neighborhoods in Oakland. But it's always been kind of a favorite of mine.
Right.
And
this is again up by the Sassoon Bay there, the Crockett.
It's the bridge that's taken you across the Carquinez Straits, over to Vallejo, Benicia kind of area there.
And it really picks up a kind of a tone and a feel with the shade and so forth. Some of these images are just really striking, and I really encourage people to go and actually see them.
I have this painting at the gallery. We weren't able to get the second shot of it where then I came back and reworked it again. This is how it looked in 2011. Then I reworked the painting last summer, 2012, about a year ago. And this is the kind of thing I was working on. And the scene I did down the street went to New York City at this time. I was selected by for a national exhibition at a Bowery Gallery, and at the Bowery Gallery in the Chelsea district in New York City.
Wow, look at this. This is vineyards up in...
This is Mendocino County.
Okay.
But in the gallery, you'll be able to see Napa Valley, Sonoma, and this is kind of overlooked Mendocino County, but on the windy 128, as you go through the Anderson Valley, there's this expansive scenes, and this one vintner just kind of left me alone and let me come onto his property. Is 150 acres, and I'm sure Hamish has never had the Corbel champagne that grows the grapes in the background there, but maybe some of the crew has had that. And
sure.
It's,
Kevin, I grew up in Marin County in the San Geronimo Valley, and some of your work is so reminiscent of the whole California experience, the coastal range, and capturing the whole feel of really striking.
Thank you very much. I would start on these vineyards, like this was the vineyard in the morning. The vineyard that we just showed would be the vineyard that scene was more like afternoon. So I might show up and work all day, start in the morning on something for about 3.5 hours, then take a break, short break, eat lunch, then go back for an afternoon shot. So we've switched to the Silverado Trail in Napa.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And this original sold to Canada, out of my Danville gallery, the gallery I had before I moved to Carmel.
Okay.
And the painting before sold out of my Mendocino gallery, and it's in New York, in upstate New York, and over the fireplace in some mansion. And this is over a Canadian's fireplace.
Right.
And the Canadian has a business out in the Bay Area,
Right.
so he loves California.
Right. And I hope everyone is hearing the business of art, okay? And that's very, very important in this day and age, Kevin, when we're constantly being told that art is a frivolous pursuit, that it's an elective, you don't really have to do anything in the arts anymore. It is so important that we foster this, and that we also remind people that it is possible to have a career in the arts.
Well, maybe if we remind them that painting costs $14,500, that might take the frivolity out of it as well.
Oh my goodness, yes, yes. Well, we all should recognize this.
For those that love the Carmel area, I was able to stand and paint Point Lobos for about 20 days, spanning September and October. It was determined to finish it in one season. And anyway, that China Cove is one of my most complicated scenes that I've done outdoors. And if you can see the shadowed cliff face, each of those little colors is different. And so that's the world I see. And so I try to ferret out each one of those colors over time. And this will be featured in the next book, Big Sur de Mendocino.
Okay.
And this is a view, another from the Silverado Vineyard in Napa. I'm above on the veranda with the promise that I use odorless turpentine to not ruin everyone's wine tasting experience. And so they really indulge me, and it's a 30 by 40, and it's kind of like the other ones. If you catch the wrong gust, you could be hang gliding with your own painting.
Yeah.
And it's Carmel River, I'm sorry, Freudian slip Napa River in the tree line in the middle ground.
Right.
And so
it's kind of toward the Anderson Valley.
this is back
still
to Napa. We're on the Silverado Trail
On the
there.
Silverado Trail.
Yeah,
Right.
it's above Silverado's vineyard owned by the Disney family.
Sure.
This is, we'll show you a little bit about my gallery. I represent other artists.
Okay.
You'll see that was my China Cove on the top that we already showed. And then next is the beautiful international award-winning photograph by Stephen Castro. That's his view of Old Veteran, the tree that probably everyone knows in Point Lobos. And it's quite a magical photograph and easy to see why he won first place. And then, and I have, Stephen really has a beautiful array of photographs of the coast, you know, from Big Sur and Point Lobos. And the other painting was Paula Boas's abstract.
I think we've got it set up where we could see your book, the first book, and that would be a nice segue, there it is, into what you're currently working on. Could one get a copy of this in your gallery?
You would, you can buy it in the gallery, yes. I'd be glad to autograph it for anyone. It's hardbound, as you can see, with a color jacket. It's got about 144 pages. There's 87 color plates.
Wow.
The next book will have about 100 color plates as I take you from Big Sur all the way to Mendocino.
Oh, fantastic.
It's a pretty ambitious project, but I've sworn to my family that I will be finishing it this year.
Oh, okay. Well, do we have more? So let's talk a little bit more about the book. So what we're going to try to do, Kevin, here at the Millennium Charter High School is combine the art experience in a project-based curriculum where we would combine art, history, botany, in a total kind of whole experience rather than all the little separate silos. So that sounds like what you do. You're historically researching the area, combining history with your art, obviously writing, you're using language. That's the kind of real life experience that we want our students to have here.
Well, if any students would like to, you know, take a look-see at the project with me in some way, in an internship or in an informal way,
we'd love to
throw
have
that invitation out to your
thank you
students.
very much. Yeah,
it involves the history like you're talking about, and I'm writing about how and why the Chinese, Japanese, Russians, Spanish, Mexicans, Portuguese, to name a few, how and why they came to California. And then there's also in the text has information about artists that resided in the region of Big Sur or worked in the Big Sur to Mendocino region. There's been many talented, not just painters, architects, musicians, writers, poets, and so it's pretty far sweeping of what I'm trying to do. I bit off quite a bit. I'm working on the funding now, besides doing the writing and the painting and trying to wrap that part up. I'm searching for funding. And so you have to wear a lot of hats. I think that's what you're alluding to. And so it doesn't work just to be the art maker guy. You have to be able to figure out how to do the other things, which I'm not saying I'm that great at, but in the end I have to deal with it, and that's maybe the most difficult thing about all of it, is that if you take this on, then you have to work in areas that aren't your best area, and you have to learn to get better at them.
Right, in order to be a success and explore and innovate in different areas. Tell us about some of the interesting research that you may have come up with. We mentioned the Weston family, for example, and they're legendary in the Carmel area.
Right, and they're definitely in there. Well, there's a quote from Edward Weston that pine cone is more expressive as a line, is as expressive as a line of the unemployed, is one of my favorite art quotes. And so it speaks to observational-based creativity And so I know he inspired Ansel Adams, and Carlton Watkins probably inspired him. And so I've got the photographers in there. The guys up in the Mendocino Lumber Company in 1860 hired Carlton Watkins to, they were pretty enlightened guys to come up and photograph Mendocino. So sometimes people ask, how are you going to tie all this together? But sometimes those things are there in some kind of magical way. But one interesting guy is the John Cooper Bautista, that there's a state park, a national park in Monterey, his Adobe, the Cooper Malera Adobe.
Sure.
And he was a ship captain, you know, and they always admired his ability to pilot this cranky boat around the seven seas. And then when he'd like sailed everywhere to China, Hawaii, around the Horn, how many times? Yeah. Then he became a landlubber and then owned like 5 parcels that are, you know, some 3,000 to 8,000 acres in size. Yeah. It's just staggering, you know, just this one guy, for instance. And then, you know, to this day you can go and see the furniture he would get for he married into the Vallejo family.
Yes.
And so he's one amazing guy. I have another story about East of Eden was filmed half in Salinas and half in Mendocino, and some people may forget that half of it was filmed in Mendocino. So when I was making the first book, I interviewed this retired fire chief, Foggy Gomes, a retired Portuguese descendant in the town. And he told me if they only got the directions right, they would have saved the Doc Preston mansion. And he gave me this, and I wrote this quote. And it, you know, I was the rookie cookie to Mendocino. I didn't really know a lot of the history, and it just kind of sat there. And so now I've got the quote all queued up for the next book. But that's where James Dean acted in that house that burned down because Foggy Gomes got the wrong directions. They went up Little Lake as they were told, but as he said, if they'd have just told me the fire was at the Doc Preston mansion, we could have saved the mansion. But that's where James Dean had a major scene with Joe Van Fleet in East of Eden, and then it burns down, and then this guy has had a dream for 20 years to found an art center, and this property is going to be turned into a trailer park. Here's the rumor. He lays $50 down, and they scribble out a receipt on the back of a sales slip out of the local supermarket, and he rescues the property from becoming a trailer park. It was where James Dean acted. He built the art center he'd been dreaming of for 20 years. It caused the town to change its complete identity, which had sort of lost after the lumber mill had closed. And then he builds a theater, and so people are acting on the same stage where James Dean acted, you know, some 37 years before in the movie East of Eden. So that's kind of the stuff that I try to put together when I'm not painting the pictures.
You know, what a glorious place that we live in, that on your way to, maybe it was serendipitous, but on your way to church one Sunday morning, you would bump into such a fascinating character like this. I mean, it's amazing that you're out there doing this work, and you're obviously passionately involved in it. You're making a living, and the books and everything else will help elucidate all the rest of us. And for that, I thank you for what you're doing.
My pleasure.
It's amazing, and we do want to involve you with the high school, and again, that kind of project where it in real terms, and it's not just go out and do it, but we can video it, we can research it, we can do all of these different things with the facilities that we have now.
Super, yeah, we can involve students that love writing or love the visual arts or love bookmaking or any kind any of the above.
But the important thing is it starts with the arts, okay? It doesn't end with the art, it starts with it. And that's, and for people like Kevin, that's where it all begins. Okay, again, this is MCAET. This is, oh my goodness, we've opened up the book. This is MCAET, channel 26 in the Comcast world. And we're looking at Kevin Milligan's book on the Mendocino, in the Mendocino area. And we anxiously await the publication of your next book, and which will include all of the characters, hopefully in the Carmel area that we've grown up with. Thank you, Kevin.
My pleasure.
Okay.